Welcome to Life's a Coach. Our mission is to empower individuals like you to take charge of your life, discover your purpose, and elevate your performance to new heights. Each week, we'll be diving into engaging discussions, introducing you to valuable tools from the coaching world, and giving you different perspectives on individual development. Whether you're seeking clarity, motivation, or a fresh perspective, we've got you covered. Again, welcome to Life's a Coach, where the power to transform your life begins now.
Welcome to Life's a Coach. Today we have Almar, Alexis, and Sophia, and they're discussing the topic of New Year's resolutions and why we fail them. Let's jump right in.
Okay.
Oh,
Hi,
there.
ladies.
Hi, Sophia. How
Happy
are
New
you?
Year.
Happy New Year. Yeah. I read somewhere that, or I heard it on a podcast, that since most people fail their New Year's resolutions that they set for January 1st to hack the system, because your body holds that memory, to then wait a week or a few days after, maybe even 2 weeks before you start your new year, so that your body doesn't recognize the same pattern. So I haven't embraced January 1st yet.
Yeah. It's funny because I actually talked about that on my last episode. So it was January 2nd. I didn't talk about recommending to wait, but I talked about how I didn't even know that there are actual what are they? National Quitters Day or something. And it's meant for
right. There's
it's
a
based
date
on data, of people letting go of or giving up on their New Year's resolutions. I guess there's 2 dates. There's a National Quitters Day, and then there's a National Give Up Your New Year's Resolution Day or something like that. And I'm like, that is so sad and yet not surprising.
I think what's most surprising it's less than 2 weeks, right? The period. It's just in that 2 week. 2 weeks is crazy.
And most of the time it's I don't know about you ladies, but for me, it was always kind of that all or nothing. I'm doing this, I'm gonna fix this habit and this habit and this habit, and it's whoa, that's great for big picture, but that's often where we're setting ourselves up to fail, right? I mean, it's way too overwhelming when you're looking at tackling all of that at once, all on the same day. So I actually love what you're saying, Almar, of okay, wait some time to implement this or whatever. Crazy.
Yeah, I was talking with a girlfriend the other day, and she brought up a really good point. She's a therapist, and so I love our conversations. And she brought up this really interesting mind shift that we forget about and that we should make, is that these New Year's resolutions that we come up with somehow are presented in a way or fabricated in a way that's supposed to add value to who we are as a human being, to make us better human beings, whereas we should really be approaching it from a whole place of being completely a valuable person and not searching to become more valuable. And I thought that was brilliant. It's what a healthy and just makes perfect sense. What a perfect sensical way to approach an intention. And I also like that word intention, other than resolution or goals. Actually, I'm really kind of adverse to the word goal. I love the word intention, and I love approaching it from a place of wholeness rather than looking for something to make us whole.
Perfect set. Also, goal, it's a little bit corporate oriented, right? If you think
Very
about it, when we think of goals. But I like what you said, Almar. I also like to talk about commitment. And I've been reading and talking to my friends about more commitment than intention. Intention, it's good, but then resolutions or things to change. Why change? Why not commit? I
Oh,
also read something very interesting that it was sometimes we force ourselves to have a new habit because people say it's healthy or it's something that is going to be good for you. But how are you aligned with that habit? Have you passion for it? Do you like that? Do you even like it? If you don't like
Right.
to run, why are you going to make this an habit? If you don't like to do it,
Yeah.
it's going to be such an effort that you can
the other
quit.
definition of values, like, do they align with your personal values?
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
I
when
mean, why
people
does it
force,
matter to you?
go
Why
ahead,
is it
Alexis.
important?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's all I was just saying. I love that, Sophia, because it's exactly it. Of like, why is it important to you? Is it just because somebody else said that you should do this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you? How do you say? Where does the reflection comes from? Is it inner self, or is it that you're looking for something outside of yourself? And it goes back to what you're saying, Almar, to be whole as a human being or a person, and not trying to change. And why the new year? And this is everybody's focused so much on this specific date, and you have 365, or this year 366 days to do something, but then that's the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think
no,
it's
and
interesting.
I like the approach. I know in our last episode when we were talking, Eric was pretty hardcore, like it has to be and you must, and the commitment and hold yourself to a standard. And I thought it was a really interesting approach, and I can see how that definitely works for mm, the elite, meaning, I mean, if your paycheck comes from showing up, really, and versus, I don't know, the human collective. I just, I am pretty disciplined, and I like things structured, and commitment is important to me. And being loyal also to a task, it's very important to me. But I don't know. I don't think we should be so serious, in our approach to life. Like life, I did I was listening to a little test, the complete the sentence, and it was, they presented, life is dot dot dot, and my first response was silly. Like, life is silly, it's playful, it should be. I don't know, I just and of course it'll change, and the answers to those tests always do. But on that note, I would like to say it's fun to have a little flexibility and humor to our pursuits.
That's I love that so much on a personal level, from a philosophical level, and it's funny because that was also something that is constantly reiterated in any of my episodes, but then especially this one. We talked a lot about, yeah, don't wait. Like, why do you have to wait until January 1st? Like, start small, celebrate the small wins, build on it, that kind of thing. But also, like, you need to enjoy the journey, because if you're just literally like, okay, I'm going for this goal, I feel that rigidness that you're kind of talking about. And I understand. I'm kind of on both sides of the camp, because I never used to be someone that stuck to any type of goal, really. So I'm like embracing structure as a good thing, and reframing, my thoughts around goals, even commitment. Like, when I hear commitment, there's an opportunity for failure. That's what my brain hears.
It's a
So
big
even
word.
commitment to me is like,
Yes.
but I also understand
Mhm.
about intention. I have great intentions, but it doesn't mean I always follow through for myself. So I'm sort of that other side of things, but enjoying the journey is something that is like living in the moment to me, which historically has been one of my biggest personal challenges. So that's almost more of my personal, like, big goal. And so I love that you even brought that up now, because I talked about that of like, if you're working on this goal, you better enjoy the process. Like, you have to find a way. So, I mean, if your goal is to get healthy, to be more toned, and you hate going to the gym, like, you better find some things that are fun for you to do. Because if you're just drudging through life because you have this goal, what is the point? Like, you're just creating misery in other areas of your life just to sacrifice for that goal. Like, I don't believe in that philosophy. But then even just on a personal level, like, I personally have a ton of stress right now. So I've been having trouble sleeping, and, just to-do lists for my to-do lists kind of thing. And one of my realizations the other night was like sitting down with myself as I'm trying to fall asleep and being like, kind of like smacking myself in the face and being like, all right, listen, when you think about, I mean, you ladies know, obviously I'm planning the wedding. It's less than a month away now. And I've been so focused on certain aspects of it. Like, I want to trim down a little bit because I've been stress eating. You know how hard and heavy that can play on your mind, especially when you have this big moment in your life where you're like, I want to feel my best. Not just look my best, but feel my best. And I started thinking about it, and this slap in my face came the other night of, what do I actually want people to remember? Do I really care if they remember that I didn't look as thin as I want to be on my wedding day? No, I want them to remember how much fun I had, how much I smiled. Like, that's what's important. And I'm like, literally having fun and smiling more and stressing less is like my personal big motto and big goal and whatever. And it actually helped a lot. So I love
Yeah.
that you're saying that, Almar. Like, you need to not just embrace the process, embrace the journey. Like, it's silly. Life is beautiful and goofy and silly, and that's my favorite part. Like, the seriousness. Like, I'm a big sap, and I can be serious with the best of them, but it needs to be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And also, how do you want it? How do you want it to remember to you, Alexis? Right? How do you want to feel it in that day? How do you want to remember, and what do you want? Because you were talking, and I was remembering a girlfriend of mine when she got married, and it was like crazy the month before, and she was planning a lot and doing all these charts and all these things and everything, and on the day she was so tired, but so tired that she wasn't enjoying nothing from the day. And then we were like, it's your day, this is supposed to be the day. But all the process and all the project and all the dreamy things that she thought about that day made her overwhelmed, and she couldn't enjoy the day as the best way she wanted to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
it's a lot about, just as you are saying, enjoying the journey and thinking, how do you want that day to be to you, and not only to the other people that are there, but for yourself, right?
Exactly.
Alexis, it took you a lot of work, though, to be able, I mean, you've done a lot of programming because you were able to click in and say, hold on, and you had a new route of thinking, whereas that is not normal for most people. It's not a natural connection. So I do have to, chapeau to you that it's indicative of like all of your hard work to get there.
Yeah.
I just
You hit it on the head, Almar, because honestly, even when I realized that was one of my next thoughts, was like, ooh, boy, am I glad I've done this level of work for self-awareness, because I was on the verge of like just minor depression because I was starting to feel so overwhelmed, because it's not just planning a wedding, like that's a lot, but my corporate job is so astronomically busy right now. It's 4 times the normal workload. So I'm feeling pretty torn. And then I have a life, like I want to spend time with my fiance and my dog and doing other things, doing podcasts like this one and mine. So it's finding a bit of that balance, but also that self-awareness that you're right. I'm extremely grateful for. And to your point, Sophia, that's exactly why I asked the question kind of the way that I did. What is it that I want them to remember, because that's what I want to remember myself. And it was like the whole point of it was, I don't want them to remember anything else because I don't really care. Like, they're going to take whatever they're going to take from it. And ultimately, that's been something personally I've had to work a lot on, is not caring what other people think. And I do still, but it's much less than it used to be. So to be able to uncover, this is deeply what I want because it's what I really want. And that's all that matters to me. Whatever else they take away from it is bonus or their own problem. Like, if they have any issue with it. But you're right, Almar. And I think that that's like one big piece of advice if I could ever give anyone, right? Is like, do the work, spend the time with yourself to get to the point where one of my friends said this to me the other day. What did she say? I've gotten to the point where I am not only okay with, but I'm accepting of, it's okay if I don't like parts of myself. I can still love myself. And it was like,
I love that. I love that, especially because it sparks another thing that I've been listening to a lot, or I've been hearing a lot in the world of therapy and coaching and self-help, is the dreaded shadow self, and how participants in studies, when asked, would you rather receive, I'm sure you all know this study, would you rather receive an electrical shock or, sit in silence and alone for, X amount of time? Everybody would choose, for the most part, the electrical shock, because the thought of sitting alone with your thoughts, with yourself, is terrifying. So, and I find that so fascinating, because really the shadow self is, I find, amazing. It's such a cool, I'll say dark maybe because I like a little bit of the dark side, but I just think it's such a cool aspect of all of us. And I wonder if everybody knew that everyone that you know and everyone in this world all have every single quote unquote, to its perspective, what you would call a negative trait. We have them all. It's like a panoply of negative traits, or whatever, negative, positive. I don't even like to use those words, but if you knew that everybody carried around the same basket, just some people devoted more time to certain traits than others, wouldn't that just kind of neutralize the fact that it was a positive or negative? And no one said you had to go out and announce to the world what all your negative traits are. But why don't you just make friends with them? I am so aware. I'm sure there's more that I don't know of, but I kind of frolic in the land of all of my negative traits. And I'm like, yep, that's exactly who I am. It doesn't take away from me my goodness, if you will, and who I am as a person. But I don't know. I just find it fascinating how people are so afraid to go there. And again, I kind of made long wind of what I wanted to get back to you, Alexis. It's spending time with ourselves, with our insides, getting to know. I mean, I think definitely there's nothing boring about it, because once we start to have dialogue with ourselves and get to know who we are, then it becomes so much more interesting, because then we can also dialogue with ourselves and notice how we are with other people, and then how other people think and act, and where does that come from? I mean, it could be it could be a week-long venture. I'm exaggerating, but it's a lot of fun. I wonder why people just fear it. I don't think there's anything to fear, really. But that's just me, and that's because I kind of relish going there and have found great peace coming from those dark places and coming out through them. And anyways, I don't know. Sophia, what do you think? You look like
I was thinking on what you're saying, because it's so important what you're bringing here, Almar, to say to people that it's okay to confront or to talk with your shadow or to talk with your negative side, because you are learning from it. And sometimes you see it something as being bad, and it's not that bad once you get to know it and get to understand why it is there. Because most of the times, and correct me if you see this differently, the negative side of us or the shadow is there to protect us. It was something that we created when we were childs, and to face adversity when we were trying to protect ourselves from things that we couldn't be responsible for, or that we weren't mature enough to deal with. And it's such a good lesson to understand about that. And I think that it's so important that you bring this up, because people need to spend time with that and to understand it more, because that is the only way that you get to be better with the other people that you have around you, once you know all your sides. Because in my line of thought, that's when I learned that, okay, now I'm going into a bad place. Maybe I'm not that good to be around at this moment. I'm going to get away for a bit and trying to relax myself, understand myself, and then I can come back and enjoy the time. And with the people that we are most safe of, they will be able to nurture us when we are showing some negative part of ourselves, when we are going through a tough moment. I really loved what you bring up.
I love that you akin it to being birthed, this shadow side being birthed at youth, which adds so much innocence and self-preservation and security to it. I love that. I love that. You just added some light onto what we call the dark side, you know. So I love that.
Well, and I think a lot of it, like for me personally, I think sometimes people, it's like they don't want to understand why they're feeling or thinking the way that they're thinking. And it's like, if you just, if you take ownership in the way of understanding your thoughts and your emotions are separate, it's like a separate avatar. Like, you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotion. And so if you can just, like, if you allow that separation just a little bit in your mind, and then you realize, like, oh, okay, well, I'm feeling angry right now. Why? Like, just if you can pause and look at it from a curious standpoint as opposed to fear. And that's what so many people, I think, is like, when they get angry, they're just like stuck in it. And then they're afraid of understanding why they feel angry. Because most of the time, it's actually not the person you're angry at. It's something within you that is like triggered, right? Like, we just don't understand. So what I used to be afraid of has become a sense of freedom now. Because when you do have those moments of clarity and pause where you're like, okay, hold on, why am I feeling this way? Like, Sophia, you mentioned, like, okay, I'm not good to be around right now. So let me take a step back and just spend some time with myself and away from people for a minute. Then you can figure out, like, oh, it wasn't what this person said. It was the way that they said it, and the way that it made me feel reminded me of this moment as a kid, or reminded me of this fear of rejection. And I think, Almar, to your point, I read somewhere once that that's where a lot of our emotions and thoughts and things around that we have this innate need in some cases, but especially a want to be liked, to be loved. Because ancestrally, if we weren't accepted by the tribe, we were kicked out.
Yeah.
And then you're on your own. And that's scary when it's a survival thing. So there's like this innate trait that is just carried with us, and then like you said, Sophia, that's coupled on top of, as we're kids and we build these defense mechanisms because we were hurt in this or that situation and we don't want to feel that pain again, or it's amazingly deep and powerful. But I think that's one of the biggest things that I personally learned and grew from, because if I wouldn't have started to see my emotions and my thoughts as separate in moments of deep anxiety, that's the last thing I want, is to be by myself. And yet it's almost paralyzing to be with others, but if you can just break that thought loop, sometimes we get stuck. And it's like, I'm not my thought.
How do you think we do that? How do we achieve, I mean, Alexis, you've done a lot of work, and I bet there are people who want to know, well, like, okay, what are some of the things I can do? Or Sophia, maybe you have some ideas also, but here we are talking about all the journey and work that we have been through and have been doing to get to where we are today, with all of these tools that we carry and wield. But how about for those that are just starting the journey or even curious about, what do you think? Like, I'll even take a moment to think how I started, but maybe the two of you have something a little bit more concrete and ready to offer.
I mean, for me personally, my personal development journey all started with getting healthy, because once I started taking care of my body, eating better, what unexpected bonus came next was mental clarity. I didn't realize how foggy I actually was living. You don't realize it until the veil is pulled back. It's kind of how I equate it. And so that allowed me a little bit more confidence to start pursuing some personal development. So that was kind of what started it for me. What that also sort of led me to was I started getting into rooms with people that I would have been intimidated by because of their personal development. But I started learning from them and picking up from them, and also meeting other people. And that led me to, there's a group out there, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of them, called Habit Finder. And Habit Finder is like, how do I describe it? I always think of them as like mindset gurus. They're like mind ninjas. And it's founded by Paul and Dave Blanchard, father and son. And they are incredible human beings. And the whole thought behind what they do is finding your thought patterns that are then impacting like your habits and just overall who you are and how you go through life. And there's like at habitfinder.com, they actually have a free, it's kind of like a personality quiz, except it's not. It's a different, but it's that kind of idea. And it spits out these results that is like mind blowing. It's just a couple of questions basically, and then it gives you all these details based on your responses, and it's really, really intriguing. And they offer like a free consultation about your results afterwards to talk about it. And they do offer coaching as well, but that consultation is just to explain a little bit. And so I learned a lot from that and from the consultation, but it just so happened that the health program I was working with, we had Paul Blanchard as a guest speaker a couple of times. And so I got to like listen to seminars of his. And then Sean and I actually did another seminar that was it was a small group that we met bi-weekly, and you learn and you share and you talk a lot about. So it was learning some of those things. That's where I learned about your thoughts are a separate avatar of you. And it was like just the knowledge and the thought of that and the visual representation. I just kept telling myself that, especially in moments of anxiety, when I
It's
felt
a good
or
mantra.
feel myself, being in that thought loop that I can't seem to get out of. It's like I had to find something to break that chain. And so if I can remember that and fall back on that, I am not my thoughts. I am not my thoughts. It's very simple to just remember. The more that I tell myself that, the more that my reticular activating system is popping in and is reiterating to me like, oh, she wants to break that habit loop. She wants to break that thought loop. We're going to help her. We're going to support that. You're not your thoughts. So that's really what it was for me is just that, and then continuing to find other books, other gurus on the topic that I could just learn from and feel more
So you
confident.
you were actively searching for tools. You found like a click, and then you head down, and it's a lot of learning. I don't know. I do know, actually. It's lifelong. I don't know, Sophia. What do you think?
Yeah, it's just as you were saying, Almar. It's a life learning process. You never know it all. You never reach a destination. You're constantly presented with challenges. So a beautiful journey, Alexis. And it's Habit Finder. You said it, right? I'm going to search for
Yep.
it. I think it's
Yep.
curious. Curious.
It's
Yeah.
really amazing. I even recommended it at work in my corporate setting, and we've talked about our team, each of us like taking the little exam to get the results, because it breaks it down by like my inner process or something, and then like my dream process and my work process. Like there's different categories, and
Cool.
it's very insightful.
I love a good quiz.
Yeah,
Right?
me too. It was just what I was mentioning. And it's important that we can also get this to people that are hearing us, that you can find free tools and other different tools, that you don't need to commit to something very expensive and a very big process, because there are small things that can help you to already reach out and to understand a little bit more about yourself. But Almar, back to your question, and thank you for asking, because I think this is the part when people sometimes find us as coaches or as people in our social life, and they say, oh my God, you have it all figured out. Yeah, but it wasn't like this, right?
We didn't just wake up like this today.
Yeah, it's not like a force. It is a force of nature, I would say it is, because it takes a lot of will and courage. As you said in your process, Alex, it depends a lot on what you want for your life, because a person can go their whole life without understanding nothing about what they are, and they go through that for years and years. In my case, it was therapy, I would say, but first it was also running. I hated running. It wasn't something that I wouldn't call myself a runner, never in my life, but I had a lot of overthinking. So I've been in the maze of overthinking my thoughts all the time and all the time and all the time. And I don't know how I started running. I cannot remember. But now I realize, and I read a lot about this, that when the thought is in your mind and you need to get it out, go do something with your body. And if you have exhaustion and your body can't take it anymore, to go do something with your mind. And I think that this is a very good balance, because we cannot take the body from the mind and the mind from the body.
Further, what do you mean? So like you go and exhaust your body, and when your body can't take the endurance or the exercise anymore, then you go to your mind? So that you go to your mind in a more fatigued, worn out, kind of vulnerable state? Is that what you're saying?
A little bit different. I would say that when something it's a lot on your mind and you feel the exhaustion on your mind of thinking a lot about something, and you can't get out of that line of thought, or you're trying to take that out of your mind, but then what you do is go read something or go hear a podcast. That doesn't work.
I see.
Because you're overwhelming your mind. So you need to release that with moving your body. Go for a walk, go for a run, do some yoga. You need to put your body moving. Even meditation, when there's a lot on your mind, at least for me, it doesn't work. Alexis, you're joining my team, right?
Yes.
So, and on the opposite of it, when you're feeling that you don't have energy because you've been doing a lot with your body, or you're going some places all the time and you don't get to rest, or your body's not responding to what you want anymore, then go read, go take a calm moment for yourself. Meditation, it's good. Spending time with nature, just observing what's happening with. I always feel that nature has a lot to teach us because it just happens, right? And this was the first step, I would say, to understand more about myself, because it helped me to balance all this. And then therapy. I'm sure I wouldn't be the person that I am today if I didn't met my therapist and she didn't give me the guidance that I needed in some difficult moments of my life. Of course, I do a lot of side job with that. It's not just going to therapy that day of the week or that day of the month and then just doing all the math on the other days. I read a lot. I tried to search, as Alexis just said. I wouldn't call it gurus. I found Jay's like this, Jay Shetty, but I started to listen and to read from people that I thought that their line of thoughts, their values, or the things that they were saying aligned with me. And I think that that's the part where you feel responsible for your own journey, right? It's not putting everything on your therapist or on your coach. I was commenting the other day when people were asking me about coaching, and I was a little bit like, yeah, I feel that people want a quick fix. They want to come with, I don't know you girls, and how are you feeling this? But people come and, wow, give me the thing, the
They want the
box
pill,
with
right?
all the solution.
Yep.
Yeah, just take a pill.
And it's tough. It is, but it's good that it's tough, because that when you see that it's hard and that you put an effort on it, that's when it's going to work. Life, it's not meant to be just.
That's a frame of mind, right? Because I from what I understand, things that are really hard are really worth it. I mean, really. And the things that we're afraid of, we secretly want so badly to have. And so, I think, how about that? I think most of us, that could be very true, but we just we're not aware of it. But what if, it's so simple. What if we were aware of that? Don't you think we'd all kind of charge forward? I wonder.
It'd be amazing if the level of not just awareness, but courage, as you mentioned, Sophia, too, and the action, if that was just dialed up, even 10%, in every person, like 10% is not a lot. It's not a huge commitment. You're not like going 100% in. Like, if you could just dial it up a little bit, yeah, it's amazing to think of how the world might be different, what inventions we would have. Like, I always think about that. It's like so many people, they have this creativity, but it's buried under fears or doubts, or just they're struggling with alcoholism, so they're drunk and they're avoiding, like there's so many different things that what could be in the world right now if we actually just embraced ourselves a little bit more in that sense. I don't know. It's one of those things that it always pops up into my mind and as like a wish.
I was just thinking, Almar, on what you said about fear, and I think that's the challenging part for the people that I talk to. It's to confront their own fears. But I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I would, first of all, I would like to just add that, and as silly or cliche as this may sound, is what we're all lacking is love. You know, it's really love. And then there's that side of love, that unconditional love that, from what I understand, maybe even if I look within, we all don't know very well. It's rare and rarer today. And confronting our fears really requires, most of our fears exist because there is a lack of love. And I, not to plug coaching, but I will at this moment, is that having maybe not so much a love, clearly not a loving relationship, but loving yourself enough to invest in yourself enough to explore in a safe environment, a safe space with your coach or with your best friend. These areas might seem less frightful because you're not alone doing it. You're doing it with someone who can be there to comfort you. But it's not only working on yourself and your fears, but it's actually, and not just loving because you're doing it to yourself, it's loving for everybody around you, like every person that you care for and love. And I think that's one thing that might prevent a lot of people from seeking out guidance and support from coaches or friends or even your local pastor, is this inability to give yourself that gift. But I wonder if knowing that it would brighten up your bubble and everybody in it as you walk along the street, I wonder if that would change. You know, because I think people have a hard time doing things for themselves, but I wonder if they think about what helping themselves would help other people. I wonder if that would change things and make them more courageous and have less fear, because there is something fearful about looking at yourself and working on yourself. But if you turn the focus on how, okay, I'm going to work on myself, but how that affects everybody in my orbit, I wonder if that would make us, less fearful, because, you see it all the time, the stranger on the street who jumps in to save the day. There's that innate, desire to help others and not so much to help ourselves, and all that to say, it was a long walk I took you on, and thank you for being there with me. But all that to say is that fear resides in all of us, and fear is nothing to fear, as silly as that may sound, but it is nothing to fear. And there are a lot of people out there who will be happy to turn the lights on in that dark room for a while and help you navigate it and make friends with it, because everything is uncomfortable and unfamiliar at first, like everything is, until it becomes familiar and you become comfortable. So I think that's also something to keep in mind, that of course it's going to be, because it's brand new, but soon it will not be, because everything in your life that is comfortable and familiar was once not. And did I take us on a long road away from the whole question on fear? But I just wanted to add maybe a different perspective on it, and to maybe encourage somebody out there to take the plunge into the unknown, because there's so much beauty in it.
I think you did, Almar. I think you did. And also on that part of what stuck with me was the part that you said people are so willing to go and save someone else, because then there's the recognition from the outside, right? Everybody's seeing you do that and you're going and save someone else. But what about saving yourself? Because that's all that is, right? I think that you brilliantly put it on a way that it's that cliche of the put your mask first, the oxygen mask first, and everybody knows this on the head, but they know this on the heart, and it's so important. And I go back to what you said before on keeping time to yourself, because this is one way of self-love also. If you're taking time to think on your thoughts, as Alexis just said, and thank you for sharing your personal side of it, Alexis, with, I stay with me and see how can I make this better for myself, and why am I being so hard on myself. And sometimes you need to do this. Even I understand what you said, Almar, if you have a coach, a therapist, a friend, someone that, but sometimes you need to do this all by yourself, because that's how you gain the strength to keep on going and moving forward and be there to help other people. I wouldn't say save, but help other people also. So thank you. Really love that.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And I mean, I could talk about fear like for days. So I'm gonna keep mine brief. But one of the biggest changes or helpful realizations that I had was in Jay's book, Think Like a Monk. The quote, and I actually have it on like one of those massive post-it notes, that take up like a huge pile. I have it on my wall. Fear does not prevent death; it prevents life. From Buddha. And
Sure.
when
Just got goosebumps.
It's so incredible. It's so empowering. And, I had already been working so heavily on my fears because, that was one of the biggest things personally that has held me back in my life. When I started growing in personal development, I finally realized that I didn't even see it. And so I think if you can flip the perspective of why you're giving into your fears. So Sophia, you mentioned, and I encounter this continuously as well with clients and friends and family, that everyone is afraid of facing their fears. So why? What is it that you're afraid is going to be the outcome? Let's explore that a little bit and think about that. And most people, it all boils down to some form of self-preservation, right? They're afraid of failing, or they're afraid of embarrassing themselves, or of rejection, or whatever. But if you think, and I use this a lot with my clients, if you think of yourself at the end of your life and you look back down this amazing journey, this amazing road of your life, are you going to be more thankful that you kept yourself in this bubble, you conserved yourself based on what everyone else in your life wanted you to be? Or are you going to be happier that you went for it in yourself and that you lived how you wanted to live and you took these risks or these leaps? So, answering or like visualizing that question, but then also thinking of it in the perspective, that same thought process or that same visual, and to say, okay, so if you're afraid and it's this self-preservation, you're already failing by keeping yourself contained, by giving into these fears. Whereas success, if that's really your goal, that's outside of this fear. And that's light. Like you're living. And I think the other big thing for me was because I have a fear of failure and a fear of success. And I had to own that, and I had to think about that and understand it. Well, I'm afraid of success because that means I raised the bar and now everyone's expectations are higher of me. So what if I fail then? And it's like, okay, well, that's still fear of failure. So I had to understand and learn a lot about failure. And I actually hate that word. I don't really like to use it because what did I call it? Um, false advertising. I was having a conversation with one of my friends and I was like, failure is
Oh,
false
I like
advertising
it.
because you
Right.
never
I like
actually
it.
fail. It's
Right.
It's
Yeah,
unless
let's
you
true. It's
quit.
true.
yeah, failure's
Yeah.
awesome. Like,
Mm-hmm.
great. Okay,
You
now I get to
learn
learn
something.
and
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't look at it as negative.
Yeah. Me
Yeah.
too.
Not at all.
Just
I'm
with
like,
But
it's
yeah.
necessary. I view it as necessary. Like, it's going to
right.
happen. It has to, because there's the
Exactly.
next level I need to get to.
Right. When you get to that point where you're able to start embracing it as a step to success, like, oh, I literally have to fail this many times before I reach success. Yes, like I failed. I checked one off the box, like I moved up to the next level, the next failure, the next failure. When you are able to start shifting your mindset, and y'all, it took me like almost 40 years here to flip that perspective, but that changes a lot on my view of fear too, because it's like I'm not giving it that same power. It's you taking the power back. So I
Yeah.
think just
Yeah.
just
Yeah. How do we
constantly
change our
hearing.
mindset? How do we change it, Alexis?
Oh gosh. I think again, just finding finding different you have to continuously get in these different rooms, whether it's in a virtual room or a seminar, a podcast, or whatever. You have to listen to these different things because you have to remember you're not the person you were yesterday or a week ago or 6 months ago. So maybe you heard the same thing, the same message, the same quote. Fear does not prevent death, it prevents life. Maybe you heard that a year ago, but you weren't ready to hear it. You're a different person now. You're ready to hear it. It's going to click differently. So I am a firm believer in attending different seminars, webinars, in person, virtually, whatever it may be, and finding different books, finding different podcasts to follow and to listen, because there's going to be somebody's story that resonates with you. And just hearing how they got through it or what they did or certain books that they read, like that's personally, that's all how it's been for me. Every little step, every little book or person that I've encountered or story, it has helped me in one way or another, just like failures, right? Like we're learning. So it's hearing different things that click in different moments for me. I did a podcast interview recently for a future episode of mine, and it was with another Jay Shetty coach, and her specialization is in resilience, and hearing her story and her perseverance and her grit actually helped me in a moment where I was feeling those claws of kind of depression. It helped shift my perspective. And it was like I needed it in that moment. I may not have had the same reaction to it 3 months ago because I wasn't in the place that I was in that episode, in that moment of doing that episode with her. So I just feel like you have to keep finding these new things, these new people, these new stories, these new books, things like that. So again, just working on personal development. I'm obviously a huge advocate of life coaching, of getting in the room with people like that are going to ask you the questions. Because I think that goes back to what you're saying, Almar. In a way, as a life coach, we're doing one of the biggest ways to honor a person by giving them time, by giving them
Yeah.
some focus, asking them deep questions that probably no one else in their life is asking them
Yeah.
because they're just not thinking on that level. That's not wrong or bad, it's just we've been through some training and we've been through some things, some life, that we have adapted from and evolved from. So I think that's one of the additional big reasons why I advocate for life coaching. Like, it's giving you some attention. Yeah, I mean, don't just do it because you want attention. do it because you have some deep reasons, some growth that you want to experience, but you're going to get asked some of these questions, and like, what a way, like I said, that we're honoring them. And that's a form of love. We're able to show that to them, give them that time for themselves to explore, and just evolve a little bit in that sense.
Yeah, now that you're talking about questions, Alexis, and when were you both reflecting on this, not only on fear, but on everything else? I remember one question that I heard first with Rosina, and it stuck to me for all the course, that it was, how is this thought helping you so far? Or how has this thought helped you so far? And this is just a powerful question to ask to someone else that is going around on fear, on rejection, on failure, on all these struggles on life. That is mind-blowing, because most of the people, they don't get an immediate answer to that. They need to get, as you were saying, Alexis, another time to get that answer, and where they are going to search for to improve their well-being, because this goes all back to well-being, right? And you were saying about books and resources. I remember a book that I read. It's from Dr. Julie Smith. I don't know if you ever heard of her. And she's a psychologist or therapist. And it's called Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? And she has different chapters for different situations, as I can't recall them all, but one is specifically on fear. And each time that I sense that I'm fearing something, I go back to that book, into that chapter, because it helps. It really helps to put my feet on the ground and understand, okay, you're fearing, but face it, be courageous. And it's just not saying things to yourself. It's reading, talking to some people, as you were saying, Alexis, that can help you see the other side of it, because on the other side of fear, there's definitely beautiful things waiting for you.
So many.
I love it. I just to maybe tie it all in to the start of our chat today, is perhaps the fear of success of our New Year's resolutions and goals, and how we quickly abandon them in that special date, or Quitter's Day, that 2-week period after the new year. And I wonder if that's either one, a lovely New Year's resolution is just to work on fear, or number two, just acknowledging that 2-week period when you're ready to quit, that's when you open up the beautiful gift, the box that we call fear, and dive into it wholeheartedly with, the tools that Alexis, that you have suggested, and Sophia as well, the resources that are out there to help overcome that pause, that 2-week Quitter's Day, and surpass it. And who knows, maybe we'll hear from you in a year or two, and you'll tell us how this episode changed your life, and how you no longer fear failure and quitting.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think it's important to remember too, that just because you didn't complete a goal, an intention, a commitment previously, does not automatically dictate that you're not going to complete it now. Like, everybody starts somewhere.
That's right.
I mean, athletes didn't complete a marathon their first time out, right? Like, just as an example, I personally have to remind myself of that. Like, we all have to start somewhere. We don't just wake up and automatically we're perfect at something. Like that's not realistic at all. And fear does not deserve to have power over your life. Like, you are stronger than that. And you are made up of more things than your fear.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's
absolutely. And besides, maybe, there was no study done on how many people did take a break after the first 2 weeks of January, only to reassess and realign their goals and start up weeks later at the start of the Lunar New Year. There's 2 new years in a year, so you have another
That's right.
opportunity.
Hey,
Anyway, it was
absolutely.
great talking with you ladies today. That was a good, fun episode.
It was good, so good to be with you both.
Yeah, hopefully if anybody has any comments or something interesting to share with us or uninteresting, I love all sorts of information as we all do. Just drop us a line. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to hear
Please
from
do.
you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, till the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of Life's a Coach, where our conversations aim to empower and support your personal growth. Until next time, remember that personal development is ongoing, so keep exploring, keep learning, and keep living a life that aligns with your true purpose. Take care, and we'll see you on the next episode of Life's a Coach.